Hello, YouTube. Hopefully, I'm live. I'll give it a couple of seconds just to make sure. I'll just assume that when it says I'm live, I'm live. Just to confirm, I'm not looking at YouTube. I'm looking at Substack, Substack on the brain. Sorry, I'm I'm looking at StreamYard, which is the software that I use to do these streams. And I always worry that there's a gap between going live on StreamYard and actually going live on the internet on YouTube. Maybe there's not. Maybe I'm just overthinking this. Anyway, happy Friday, guys. As always, if you're watching this in the future, thank you for tuning in. If you're watching this live now, I see some people are starting to come in. Hello. We will get on to Q&As a bit later, as we always do. So if you're not familiar with the format of these live streams, it's basically a case of me waffling on about something to begin with, a certain topic, which hopefully is interesting, and then turning it over to the people in the chat room. And as always, just so that I don't distract myself, I'm going to not look at the chat. I'm going to turn it off. But while I'm talking, chat amongst yourselves if I'm boring you. And I'm typically British, aren't I? I'm always kind of worried that I'm boring people. Do British people do that? I don't know. Anyway, waffling. So yeah, keep chatting in the comments thing in the chat window. And also put all your questions in there. So as soon as a question comes up, stick it in the comments section, and I will come back to them a bit later once I've finished talking about the stuff that I want to talk about. Also, guys, if you haven't checked out my Substack newsletter list, the link is down below. Basically, every Friday I send out a written newsletter, which is a bit like this, really, but a written form. And I talk about things behind the scenes of this business, my thoughts on the industry, my thoughts on certain platforms, all sorts of things. And it's I really enjoy writing that Substack newsletter list. I treat that newsletter, I treat it as a bit of a therapeutic thing for me. It's a bit of an outlet. I can get a bit ranty sometimes about things, and possibly, I don't know if I overshare, but I share quite a lot about the business. So if you want to get an insight into that, it's completely free to sign up. If you don't enjoy it, you can unsubscribe at any time. That's no problem. But yeah, check it out. Substack below. Okay, the thing that I want to talk about today is writing, because writing is something which, well, I'm a writer first and foremost. I was certainly a writer before I was a YouTuber for many, 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 many years. I love writing. I think I'm pretty good at it. And I'm a profitable writer. So I write online, as you guys hopefully know, and that writing is very profitable. And the reason for that is quite straightforward. Well, there's two reasons for it, really. One of them is because I've got all the kit that I need to write. So I have a laptop, I have several laptops, and I, I have a brain, just about. So those two things are all I need. A bit of experience and imagination. That's the word I was looking for. Ironic, I'm trying to find words when I'm talking about being a good writer. I promise I'm better in the written word than speaking sometimes. But I've got all the stuff basically that I need to be a writer, which means I don't have to buy stuff to put my words out there, which makes them profitable. Having said that, it's not quite as straightforward getting into this as just starting to write, publishing stuff on the internet and making money from it. There's a lot more behind that. So this video, what I'm going to talk about now isn't the entire process of how to make money online. There's loads of stuff about that out there. I've talked about it myself. I will dig into those topics a bit more in the future on these live streams. But I thought what I'd show you is my process, because I'm a really boring person when it comes to processes. I talk about them a lot on these live streams and for Academy members. And it's something that I've always built into every business, a real focus on process. Because if you get processes right, and if you don't mess around with them, if you find processes that work and you don't have to tweak and change all the time, if you just leave them, you become profitable, because you don't have to worry about the inner workings of something. So I'm very process driven with my writing, as much as I am with everything on this channel. Mark Ellis Reviews, everything I do. So yeah, I'm going to share my screen in a second and show you the Notion layout that I have for writing, and then how a blog goes from the kind of idea stage through to a published thing on my website and Medium, which we'll talk about a bit later. Right, let me get the screen shared. Here we go. Okay, so if you're not familiar with Notion, guys, Notion is how do you explain what I always struggle to explain what Notion is, because it can be so many different things. The best way I think to describe Notion is to call it just a massive database. And it can be a database, obviously, about anything you want, and you can present the data in that database in a variety of ways. A lot of people use it for planning, which is pretty much what I'm going to show you here, whether it be project planning or content planning. But you can use it as a personal knowledge base, a personal wiki, as they call it. There's so much stuff you can do with it. It can be a very detailed to-do list manager. It can be a journal. It's incredibly smart. But I run my entire business through Notion. So everything that you see on this channel and on the Mark Ellis Reviews channel goes through Notion in the planning stages and in the production stages. And writing is no different. So every week I write a certain number of articles. It used to be 5, pretty much very strictly 5 every week. So it would be one Monday through to Friday, one day a week. And that's changed slightly over the last 18 months or so. I'm writing less sometimes. It's very much driven by the videos that I'm making. So it's definitely worth explaining how that works. So pretty much every video that you see on the Mark Ellis Reviews channel starts life as a blog post. So the blog post gets written, that gets turned into a video, and the video gets turned into short form content for things like TikTok and Instagram. That process is pretty much the same each time. So the blogs that I write are driven by my production calendar for videos. So if I have a sponsored video coming up for, I don't know, an iPhone case or a piece of Mac software or something, I will have a video planned for that. Therefore, I need to have a blog written to feed that video. Also, news drives it quite a lot as well. So if there's new products being released or significant things happening in tech, that drives the writing that I do each week. But what I do, I plan out in Notion as much as I can what I will write on each day. And the way that I do that is that, as you can see here, I have basically a column in Notion for each day. So Monday through to Saturday, here's the columns. And within those columns, I have the next bunch of blog posts that I'm going to be writing. This is a terrible example. I did this with the Medium Academy, where I showed them this screen. And 10 minutes prior to that, I'd been saying things like, make sure you plan ahead, have plenty of blog posts stacked up for each day. And then I showed them mine, and it was empty. So do as I say, not as I do, that kind of thing. And there is a reason for this, which is because I'm going into quite a heavy planning period for videos, basically. So not all of the videos are completely set in stone yet when they're happening. A lot of them are, but there's a lot of things that are moving around. So before I kind of get ahead of myself with blogging, I'm making excuses. Anyway, so this is how I plan them out. And normally, at this time on a Friday, I would have pretty much all of the blog posts for next week mapped out. As it stands, I've just got the one, which is to do with the iPhone. But on Monday, I know that I'm going to write that blog post. That's set in stone, won't change. So when I get up on Monday morning, there it is. It's there straight away. I haven't got to sit there and think, what am I writing today? Tuesday might be a different thing unless I pull my finger out. But Monday, I know what I'm doing. And what happens with most of these blog posts, and this has changed, my process with this has changed a little bit over the years. Previously, I would just have the title and then go straight into Ulysses, which is the software that I use to write this stuff, and just start writing off the cuff. That, over a period of time, became more difficult because the stuff that I was writing about was getting a little bit more technical in terms of specs for things. If I was reviewing a laptop, for instance, the spec part of the review was getting quite detailed, and I was having to get more and more accurate with stuff because I was, the channel was getting bigger, the brand was getting bigger, and I needed to be as accurate as possible. So those kind of things were creeping in. And equally, the more you write, the more that you realize how important storytelling is. I've always known that, but you realize it the more that you write, that in order to get people to read things and keep them reading things, you've got to tell a story. And the only way really that you can tell a story with writing is to map out what you're going to write about. So rather than just look at the title and think, right, I'm going to write about, after 10 years, I finally figured out the iPhone, I need to map that out a little bit. So the first thing I do, and I'm not going to use that one as an example, I'm going to use, as they say on Blue Peter, here's one I made earlier. I'll use the most recent one that I've published. Just very quickly, guys, so you can see here we've got the days of the week that I'm publishing on, and then when I start writing something, it goes into this writing column. So I know that I'm in the process of writing it. When I've written it, it goes into proofreading. So if I get called away, if I have to go out and, I don't know, go to the gym or go and buy some milk or something, I know where I am with that blog. Once it's been proofread, if it needs an image or needs some images, it goes into that column for the image production. It then goes into what I call readyformer.com, which is markellisreviews.com. So at that point, it's been written, it's been proofread, and it's been uploaded to Mark Ellis Reviews. And at that point, I have my publishing assistant, a very, very brilliant guy called Max, who does all this stuff for me, who takes on that blog post, formats it properly, puts internal links in there for SEO, and hits the publish button, basically. When he's done that, he moves it into the ready for Medium column. And at that point, that gets given to my VA, and he takes the blog post from my website, imports it into Medium. I have talked about the process for this on a previous live stream, so if you look back a little bit, you'll probably find some stuff on that. I'll talk about it in the future again, but basically he takes that website blog post, imports it into Medium, and that ends up on Medium, basically. At that point, it's pretty much done, in which case it gets put into the fully published column here. So in here are all the blog posts that I've ever published. Very big list, as you can imagine. But what I want to do is show you the most recent blog post that I've published, and just show you how I map out the blog post itself. So this was about I always get the name wrong. Asus, I think you say Asus ZenBook S13 OLED. Terrible product name, but this is their one of their latest laptops, which I reviewed. So we've got here the title. And then beneath that, we've got the kind of setup for this blog post. So the Medium title might be different to the website title. So sometimes the title that I write for the website, for my website, is very much SEO focused. So I'm thinking about search terms. I'm thinking about what are people going to put into Google to potentially find this blog post. Whereas with Medium, you have to be, and they won't like me saying this, you have to be a little bit more clickbaity, a little bit more, you can be a bit freer with it, which I quite like. You don't have to go down this very structured titling with it. So quite often I will have a different title. And the benefit of having this in here is because it tells my VA what the title is for Medium if it's different. There's also a Medium subtitle in there as well. All the topics for Medium, so all the tags, if you like, for Medium. The raw blog post is just an output of the raw blog post, obviously, which contains the links and stuff, so my VA can refer to that if he needs to. And a bit further down, once it's published, I put the links in here, and then if it's linked to a review unit, that's made a note of in here as well. And if it's linked to a video, which quite often it is, as I mentioned earlier, that is linked in here as well. So there's this all this stuff is linked together. I know exactly what's going on. However, going back to the structure of these blog posts, this is what I do. So once I've got the title, once I know what I'm writing about, I come into Notion, come into this outline section, and just map out the basics or the headings, if you like, for the blog post. So for this one, there's going to be an intro. There's always an intro, obviously. But then I wanted to go from the intro to the specs and pricing. So that was the first section, really, if you like. And then I wanted to talk about what I love about that laptop as a Mac user. So that would be the next heading. And then a bit further down, what I don't love about it, that's the third heading. And then the conclusion. Really simple, a very simple review structure there. Incredibly simple, actually. Some people would say too simple, but that's how I do reviews. And then within each of these sections, I've just put in a whole bunch of bullet points. So again, because this is a review of a laptop, there's a whole bunch of specs that I need to get right. So I've just pulled all of these specs that I need from the press briefing, or from the website, I think in this case, and a few other bits and pieces that I just want to make note of. So the fact that it's the most eco-friendly ZenBook ever, etc., etc. In the intro, sorry, just very quickly going back up here, I've just put some bullet points just to guide me through writing that intro. So the key things that I want to hit in that intro are just listed as bullet points. I may not write all of them potentially, but I'm gonna, as soon as they come into my head, they're there. And the same thing for each of these headed sections. So again, a bit further down, the section about what I love about the ZenBook, whole bunch of bullet points here. And I've kind of broken those up as well. So I love the price of this laptop. Why do I love the price of this laptop? For those two reasons. I love the size and the weight. Why? Because of all this stuff here. And none of this stuff is very well written. It's just thoughts that come off my head straight away. They're just very quick notes just to prompt me while I start writing. And the benefit of doing this, guys, is that when you do come to start writing, you've pretty much got the blog post written. Although you would never publish it in this form, it's there. All you've got to do is write it, polish it up, and then you've got a blog post. And this process here, where I kind of bullet point out the structure, probably takes 10-15 minutes, but it reduces the time taken to write the blog post by, I'd guess, probably about half an hour. I'd spend a lot longer writing blog posts if I didn't do this, because I'd be going at a blank page, which is, as I mentioned earlier, pretty hard work. While I'm waffling on, guys, just very quickly, a reminder that if you've got any questions, because we will go to the Q&A section fairly soon, stick them in the comments. Is it the comments? Do they call it the comments? Whatever it is, the chat bit of these live streams. Pop them in there. I'm not looking at the chat stream yet. Not looking at the chat window yet. So I don't want to be distracted. But please fill that thing with questions about this stuff, about writing, about anything you like, any questions you've got about my business and this wonderful world of creating content. Quick slurp of tea. No beer this week. Was it last week I had the beer? Or was it the week? I think it was the week before, wasn't it? That was needed that week, though, for reasons that I'll come on to in a moment. So I map out this structure, and once I've done that, when it comes to the day for writing this, because normally I'll do this in advance, I won't do this on the day of writing the blog post. It might be the week before, it might be the day before, but I will very rarely do this on the same day as the blog post, because again, it's just the process I go through, it's the process I'm used to, and it just gives me a head start. I always thank my past self when I do this. If I don't do this, and occasionally I do slip up and forget to do it or whatever, things happen. If I ever come to this and there's just a blank outline, nothing in there, I hate my future self. It's that important. So anyway, once I've written that, once I've kind of mapped out the outline, if you like, there, I start writing it. And to show you that, I'm going to have to stop sharing this screen. This bit's always a bit clunky. Bear with me. Let me share the next one to show you. Now, I mentioned earlier that I use Ulysses as my writing tool. There are many different writing tools out there. I've used most of them, to be honest. I used to be a very big Scrivener user. I don't know if you've heard of that before. Scrivener is great if you're writing a script, as in a movie script, or a book, but it's not brilliant for writing blog posts. It's a bit convoluted, basically. But I got stuck with it for quite a while because, again, it just started. I built a process around it and didn't want to change it. Then I found Ulysses after flirting with a few other things, and Ulysses is just it's brilliant. I'm not endorsed by them. I've never spoken to them in my life, but I absolutely love their product. It's fantastic. So if you're looking for a distraction-free writing tool, this is the one to go for. The only thing to bear in mind, ironically, given the subject of this blog post, is that it's only available on Mac. There's no Windows version of Ulysses, which is really frustrating for someone who does test Windows laptops occasionally. It's the one thing where it throws me completely because I can't really do my writing properly on a Windows laptop because Ulysses isn't there. It's a bit of a nightmare. But anyway, I digress. So I've got my outline done. That's when I go into Ulysses and start writing. So I put the title in there. Lost my mouse pointer. I put the title in there from Notion, and then before I write anything, I map out those headings. So I put specs and pricing in there. I put those headings I showed you a moment ago, basically. Get them into Ulysses, and then just start writing. Start right from the top, write my intro, write the specs and pricing bit, all the time referring to those notes that I made, because within those notes, I mean, even though some of it will be fresh in my mind, I can kind of write freely. I always make sure I've read the notes as well and keep referring to them, just in case there's something that my past self, an idea that I had back then, which may have been really useful or a really good point that I wanted to make. I don't want to miss those things. So I'm always kind of referencing the two screens. And yeah, write it. And once I'm happy with it, I do one proofread. I used to do two proofreads. I'd proofread it in Ulysses and then get it into WordPress for my website, and then proofread it again. I've stopped that second proofread because it was just taking too long. As a result of that, that it may have reduced the quality occasionally. There may be certain things that I'm missing, but I don't think that if that is happening, it's not big enough of a problem to make this process any less efficient or profitable, which is all that matters really. Plus, I have my, as I mentioned earlier, my publishing assistant who does have a read through as well. And he has not complete free will, but he does have a bit of leeway to change things if he spots them. So once I've written this, I then import directly from Ulysses. This is the other great thing about Ulysses. You can basically, oops, I keep losing my mouse pointer. Here we go. You can basically hit the button up here and publish directly. I won't do it again, but publish directly to your WordPress site. So it takes all the formatting, or most of it anyway, and sticks it into your WordPress site as a draft. Really cool. I won't show you that process, but once I've done that, it then ends up on the website, and I can very quickly show you that. Let's stop the screen share. Bear with me. Share screen. This is such a slick presentation, guys, isn't it? It's a good job you're not paying for this. Let's share this one here. So once it's on the website, it looks a little bit like, he says, this. So this is my website. This is that exact blog post that I was showing you, albeit formatted for the website. It's got an image in there, obviously, as well. And loads of ads, tons of adverts, which I do want to talk about quickly because there's a lot of them. And occasionally I get complaints about this from some loyal readers and just some trolls occasionally as well. And my response to the people who matter, which is the loyal, nice people, is very simple, which is that this pays part of the bills now. And I can talk numbers, no problem at all. So at the moment, the website averages about 4,500 hits a day, unique hits, which is amazing. And revenue-wise from that, when it comes to these ads that you're seeing, so things like these videos and these things that are appearing all over the place here, not loading they do normally load. I think it's because of something I'm doing with the screen share possibly, but I know they work because the money's coming through. But all these ads basically, it ranges between 1,500 to about $2,000 a month, dollars USD, which is for a website that I haven't paid a penny for anyone to do SEO on. I've talked about this before on these live streams. I'm pretty happy with that. Equally, it's a source of revenue I'm not going to switch off for the time being. That said, I'm not keen and I'm not happy with the number of ads on this website. There's way too many. It slows down on certain browsers and on certain computers. But I'm in that very tricky position where it's making good money and I'm not getting enough complaint. I get very few, to be fair. I'm not getting enough complaints to make it worth changing at the moment. My ultimate goal with this, as you may guess, is to have no ads, but to have a sponsor, have a dedicated sponsor for the entire site. And basically, a little bit like a YouTube video, you'd have a sponsor who pays for, let's say, a month, a month's worth of appearance on the website. And there's no ads, but you do see, the only ad you see really is for that sponsor. So there is an ad, in fairness, but nothing like you see on here at the moment. It would change everything. Basically, the ads themselves would disappear, like I say, apart from the sponsor. But all of the technical stuff behind the scenes that makes these ads happen and typically slows these kind of websites down and gives you pop-ups and stuff vanishes. So the user experience, which is the most important thing, improves massively. So that is my ultimate goal. I'm not there yet with that. It's something which needs time, really, which I don't have, but I'm working on that as well. But anyway, so that appears on the website, and then that gets imported from the website into Medium. As I mentioned a moment ago, quite often the headline or the title, if you like, will be different on Medium compared to the website, but everything else is identical. The same images, the exact same text. There's no changes to the text at all. But there is what they call a canonical link at the bottom. So this links back to the original website article and basically tells Google that everything's fine. Don't worry. Keep the attribution, the original copyright, if you like. applied to the original website, which means my SEO doesn't get screwed up. It doesn't affect that at all. So I can have the exact same content on both websites. It's never caused a problem. And that's it, basically. That is the process. And the reason it's profitable is because those ads, like I say, I'm not having to pay for those ads. They just appear there. I have a service called Monumetric that provides the ads, but they are basically Google ads. Monumetric are kind of a go-between because they negotiate better rates for you and that sort of stuff. They take a cut, but I don't pay them. I mean, technically you could say that I pay them, but I would never get that full cut anyway, because where would I start with that? You need an intermediary if you want to get the best rates. So there's no cost really, apart from my time. So that process in total, getting from my point, from my writing my ideas to Ulysses to published, maximum probably takes 3 hours for everyone involved. The only cost I do have now is the publishing assistant and the VA, but they're very low cost in that respect for that portion. So again, it's still very profitable. The thing that isn't quite as profitable now, and looks to be heading down how do I put this? Heading south, let's say, is Medium. And I did talk about this. Was it 2 weeks ago? Time's gone so quickly. I think it's been 2 weeks that we've been having the Medium changes take effect. So I won't regurgitate all of that stuff now, but very quickly, Medium has significantly changed both its the way that it pays writers and the way that it basically promotes stories and gets story, as they call it. Blog posts on Medium are called stories. How it promotes stories to its network of readers, and it has completely decimated certain niches, and tech is one of the biggest ones. I know of someone on Medium who was I'd had no idea until recently, was earning $5,000 a month. On average, he had 1 month that was $10,000. I've not seen either of those numbers. The most I've ever earned on Medium was $4,700 in 1 month. Typically for me, it was just above $2,000 each month, but this guy was doing $5,000. But basically, most people who are experiencing that kind of income from Medium, not most people in certain niches like tech, have had their earnings slashed. And I'm one of those people, either by 50% or an awful lot more. And it's been a really trying time. I've made my feelings known about this very vocally and very publicly. I've written about it I'll put a link, actually, if I remember, in the description below once this is finished, to my article about Medium on Medium, which I wrote fairly quickly. Actually, it's one of those things that I was feeling so passionate about one evening that I thought, no, I'm just going to write something. I don't care. I'm going to put it out there. Wrote it pretty quickly, and it was just from the heart. It really was, because Medium means an awful lot to me. It's always been second to YouTube, really, in terms of the priorities when it comes to content production and content distribution. Now, because of these changes, it's just gone, really. I now see Medium as a bonus if it earns well. That's a real shame. And more worryingly, I think it's now underserving the audiences who are reading all this stuff. They're very hard to find now, unless you get your story boosted, and you can only get it boosted if it gets recommended, or if it gets found, basically, or recommended to the nomination team, which is literally I assume a room, or people working from home, real people ticking boxes to say that these stories should be boosted, which is utterly farcical. And some really strange things have been happening. Again, I don't know how much I can talk about this publicly, but there's been some very odd things happen. That I've seen story nominations for boosts be reversed, and one of them I recommended to be boosted. It wasn't boosted, and then after I'd made a complaint about, or been very vocal about something about Medium, I had an email from the boosting team saying, "Oh, we've reversed the decision, and it's okay." And even though it was a story which was a listicle, which I didn't think they liked anymore. Anyway, I'm not going to get on the soap. I've been on the soapbox again, haven't I? I'm going to put the soapbox away under the table. But Medium at the moment is in flux, is probably the nicest way to put it, if you are a tech writer. If you're not a tech writer, it may not be a problem. In fact, it may be the best time ever. But as it stands, Medium still plays a part in my writing process. It is still making money, so it's still profitable, absolutely. It's just less profitable than it was by quite a bit. But that's my kind of writing process and the reason that like I say, it makes decent money. It's not guaranteed, and I think like everything in this game, you're not guaranteed to keep earning well with this stuff because you're reliant on other platforms, particularly when it comes to blogging. Even your own website, you're reliant on Google search traffic and ad spend. That ad spend that I mentioned a moment ago goes up and down, and I can't control that. It just happens with the seasons, with with marketing budgets changing as well. So it's, again, I can't control that. But that's it, guys. That is my. That's not the end of this live stream, but that is my writing process. Let me just go to the comments now. I can see we've got some questions. I'm going to have a quick drink. Hello, guys. Hello, everyone who's joined us. I can see the usual suspects: Alan, Kevin, Rob, Travis. Travis, have you been on before? I have a feeling you may be new, which is great. I love to see new people. We haven't got many on now, but hit me with some questions, guys. I don't want to finish this early if I can avoid it. We have got some questions here. Kevin's still calling in from Lakeland, Florida, which is always makes me jealous, because although the weather here has been a bit better, it's been terrible today, but we have had better weather in the UK over the last couple of days. Alan, looks like you've got a question. The sound on those outdoor DJI mics is incredible. Can you please share what settings you're using and what you're doing in post for sound? I can't seem to get mine to sound as crisp. I can. It's difficult to do it now on this live stream, Alan. I might do another live stream where I show a bit more about my audio production. In fact, I think I will do that. I'll put that down as a live stream to do in the near future. Again, like everything, it's a process for me. So once I've found something that works, I don't tweak it. So I got the sound, the post sound tweakage right for those mics a couple of months ago, I think, and left it as a template, just so I can copy and paste it. From memory, it's not. I don't do a huge amount with it, to be honest, Alan. There's a bit of EQ. I always roll off the bottom end. That's something that I hear. This is a bit of a bugbear of mine. On some big YouTube channels, if you listen to them with headphones on, you generally need headphones for this, a decent pair of headphones. There's a lot of stuff going on at the lower end of the frequency range, which basically means they haven't rolled off the bottom end. And that is basically pretty much anything below 30 hertz, which can be road. You can pick up road noise, you can pick up planes going overhead. You might, if you're working in an apartment block or somewhere where there's people above who have got heavy-footed walking across, you'll hear that really deep sub-bass rumble. It's amazing how many really big YouTube channels who should know better, some very obvious people who do this, or not obvious, but you can probably guess who people who really focus on quality videos. Don't roll off the bottom end, and it's horrible. If you listen to it on headphones, all you can hear is this horrible booming. That bothers me. So I always roll off everything below roughly 25, 30 hertz. It's worth doing that partly particularly with these mics, because the little dead cat thing, I can't show you them at the minute, but the little dead cat thing that you screw on the top does a very good job of getting rid of wind noise to a degree, but there's still wind noise there. And wind noise is pretty bad at that frequency range. So roll off the bottom end on EQ. I find they're quite toppy. I find that the top end it's very there already. So I tend to drop that back a little bit. And then there's just a light bit of compression, I think, a bit of compression just to even everything out. And a bit of a little bit of a boost with a loudness boost with a limiter. I think that's pretty much it. But at some stage, Alan, I will show you my kind of audio chain for that stuff, but it's simpler than you probably think it is. Again, I just keep things simple, and if it works, I just leave it at that. Like, the great thing with these mics is that their sound never changes, and particularly if you're walking around doing stuff, if you're outside, that's one of the best environments anyway for sound. If you want a bit of stuff happening as well that you can hear, you don't get any booming or things bouncing off walls, because there are no walls. So that's quite nice. Alan also says, I love the videos you're doing when out and about, even when they are because of the drilling. Yeah, so anyone who doesn't know, Alan's referring to a video review of the Flip 5 Samsung phone, which I did a couple of weeks ago. I started it in here. As he says, something goes crashing past. I started it in here, and they were basically ripping up the entire road outside, putting down fiber for internet. I knew they were doing it, but I just chanced my arm that day and came in. I had to get the video filmed basically that day, but it very quickly became apparent that it was just completely unworkable. So I think I did the hook and the intro here. And towards the end of the intro, you won't have seen this because it was all edited out, but there were so many times I had to stop and swear at the window. I just thought, what do I do? And in the past, I would probably have battled through, or I don't know what I'd have done. I'd probably, yeah, I'd have had to battle through and try and fix it in post, or make a note of it and be really kind of obvious about the fact that the sound's rubbish, which isn't great. These days, as I've mentioned recently, I just pick up my camera and leave and go and do it somewhere else. And the great thing these days is that I use a very small camera, so I use a little DJI Osmo Action 4. So I just grabbed that and went out with the mics as well, and I ended up walking around the golf course at my local gym, which totally unrelated to that phone, but it didn't matter, and it meant I got the video done. There was a very ironic part of this, which I didn't really clock onto until someone mentioned it, which is that I went from being in here to suddenly being in the car, parked up, saying, "Look, I've had to leave the studio because of all the noise. I'll carry on from here." And at that point, it cut to me driving down the road, and all you could hear me, but there's just all this road noise and tire noise in the background. So slightly ironic, but yeah, I've gone way off tangent there, haven't I? But I'm glad you're enjoying those videos, Alan. I did another one last week, which went live today, which was me walking around London talking about the Garmin Fenix 7 Pro, which is a smartwatch. I love making those videos. They break things up, so I'm not just sat in this room all the time. It's a bit more interesting for the audience, and it's just they're more interesting videos to make. Quite often, a bit like the one at the golf course, there's no connection between the location and what I'm talking about at all. Nothing. You know, I was in New York a few weeks back reviewing the 15-inch MacBook Air, walking across the Brooklyn Bridge. Had nothing to do with that at all. But because I was there, I wanted to maximize my time there and make it profitable. It made sense to make a video there, and it's just interesting. I don't know. If you can do it, honestly. Rob, have you thought about adding ad-free website experience as a Patreon perk? I haven't actually, Rob. That's not a bad idea. Technically, how that would work, I don't know. There's some tweaking that would have to go on to make that possible. Potentially, that's not a bad shout. Something I could think about. I just want to get to the stage really where the website doesn't have any ads on it apart from a single sponsor, which is absolutely possible. And it's producing numbers which should be interesting to the right sponsors. But like I say, it's a time thing really. But that's not a bad shout. That's something I can definitely think about. It's partly why I do these live streams, just to get ideas about the business. Travis is 13. Here's the inevitable tech question, which I'll answer. It's fine. Is the $1,350 a good deal on a certified refurbished base model M1 Max Mac Studio? Considering M2 is out and M3 coming soon, bad time to buy. There's never a bad time to buy a Mac, I don't think, Travis, because we never know when Apple is going to release new Macs. Don't let the thought of new Macs prevent you from buying what you need now. If you don't need it now and you can wait, then wait a bit longer. But even then, at some stage, you're going to have to buy something. Is that a good deal for an? I don't know. Off the top of my head, Travis, I get a lot of these questions where people say they give me their budget and then they list about. You haven't done it here, but they'll list about 15 different configurations of Macs and ask me to pick the right one. I very rarely answer those things because I just don't know. There's so many variables. Depends what you're going to be doing with it as well, Travis. Some people in the comment section here may give you a bit of a steer. Sorry, I can't give you a better answer than that. It sounds like a fairly good deal, I think. It sounds pretty good, but certainly don't be swayed by what might happen in the future because Apple is so unpredictable. Quick drink of water, guys. Mike says, as a former magazine editor, I share your love of writing. Nice. With the issues with Medium, do you intend to move to another platform? So I've kind of done that to a degree already. So as I mentioned at the start of this live stream, I have a Substack newsletter list, which is entirely devoted to Solo Club. It's not got anything to do with the reviews brand. The reviews brand at the moment is purely obviously YouTube, but when it comes to writing, it's Medium and my website. If the stuff with Medium continues, if it still becomes a point a bone of contention and just isn't profitable. I keep mentioning that word today. I'm a business person. I'm running a business here. It needs to make money. If I'm investing too much time into Medium, which I'm not at the minute, to be fair, because it's not a huge overhead, as you've just seen. It doesn't take me a lot. If I'm publishing something on the website, it may as well just go on Medium. It's not a lot of time involved in that. Plus, someone else is doing it. However, if it gets to the point where it's just not making much money at all, I will think again. And Substack is really interesting. Although I'm only using it for Solo Club at the moment, there's nothing to say I wouldn't move to something like Substack. And there are lots of other options for Mark Ellis Reviews to have some form of other place to put my tech review content other than the website. I don't know, possibly, but I'm not. Medium I've lost a lot of faith in Medium. It's not gone completely, but it's not far off. And this is the problem they've got. And I think I think they're rattled by this. The emails I'm getting from them, the comments, the people who are replying to my comments who work for Medium, and my stories. They're rattled. I think it's clear to see, and they are going to lose some very good writers unless they make some changes. But yeah, I have no allegiance to Medium. I used to have it, but they've lost a lot of my respect, I'm afraid, and they can get it back, but they've got some work to do, I'm afraid. So yeah, I would absolutely move, Mike, and I just need to think about it. See, I'm going to give it another couple of months and see how things go, basically. But I'll keep you guys updated, obviously, on that. I'm not going to try and pronounce your name because I'll get it wrong, and that's not fair on you. Thank you for tuning in, though. Not familiar with Medium, but quick, genuine question. Why would someone pay to read a Medium article when you have the same thing published, different title on your website? Thanks. Perfectly reasonable. I think the thing to bear in mind with that is that Medium has thousands of writers. So basically you pay, I think it's $50 a year to get full access to the entire site. And if Medium had a decent algorithm, and if it was able or capable of feeding or giving you a decent kind of for you page, a bit like TikTok, well, basically if it had a homepage that worked, which it doesn't. Whenever you log into Medium as a reader, I'm not the only person that has noticed this, you get old articles, you get stories, and you get stories that are, how to make X amount of dollars every day on Medium. It's just a rubbish algorithm, basically. But if that worked, paying that $50 a month would mean that you'd find my stuff, but you'd also be recommended stuff from someone else who writes similar things to what you're clearly interested in. So you're paying for far more than just my articles, basically. If you only read me, then I don't know why you do that. But if you did, then absolutely just read my website. It's free. But yeah, you're paying for a much bigger thing in theory with Medium if it had a proper algorithm. Jakob's on here. Hi, Jakob. Jakob is a fellow Medium writer who's been hit by this as well. So we've been talking a lot behind the scenes on this one. Rob says, how big is Ali Abdaal in real life? I've not met him, Rob. I don't know why you think I've met him, but I haven't. I did listen to, talking about Ali Abdaal, he was interviewed recently by Colin and Samir. If you haven't heard of those guys, they've got a YouTube channel with about 1 million subs now, I think, and they offer advice about running YouTube businesses. And they interview some very, very big creators on there. They most recently interviewed Ali Abdaal, who was a very big inspiration for me in terms of getting off my backside and creating this business. But the interview with him is absolutely fascinating. He talks he always does talk openly, but he talks very openly about the mistakes he's made over the last 18 months. And more importantly, what he's done to rectify those things, like reducing the head count of his business, which ballooned out of proportion, stopping the part-time YouTuber Academy as a cohort-based course and turning it into a self-service thing, and just some really interesting things about staffing and stuff, which has really inspired me to make a few changes, which I talked about actually in today's Substack newsletter list. If you want to join that and check it out. But I have no idea how big he is. I've heard he's quite tall, I think, but yeah, I've not met him. Rob, I joined late, so apologies if this has been answered. Are there plans to sell your Notion templates as a Mark's Notion in a box package? I'm glad you mentioned that, Rob, because I forgot to mention that earlier. I am going to. Again, this is time. I need the time to get that packaged up. But I have every intention of providing the what you've seen today in terms of the planning stuff for blogs as some kind of Notion template. In terms of getting my time back, I'm making a very big change quite soon. I'm currently looking for a right-hand person to be my what I've kind of called a general manager, which is what Ali Abdaal calls his. I'm obsessed with Ali, but the way the reason he's doing it makes perfect sense. It's someone to sit below me who can do the stuff that I shouldn't be doing, basically, which frees up my time in theory to do other things like get this stuff sorted. So yeah, there are plans. I'm not sure when yet, but hopefully relatively soon. Oh, okay. So you thought I was present in the audience for us. Oh, I'm with you. Apologies. No, well, this wasn't an audience. They didn't do the interview with Ali in front of an audience. I don't think, Rob. It was just I think it was at their studio in LA or something. I definitely wasn't there. Mike, apart from online writing and creating content, what is most of your time spent doing? Online writing and creating content. Those two things, a lot of my time, an awful lot of my time. If you bear in mind that I make, on average, 2 videos a week for Mark Ellis Reviews. I write, like I say, 3 or 4 times a week. I do this, obviously, each week. I do attempt to do another Solo Club video each week as well, which is proving difficult at the moment. But again, once I have assistance, that will make it a bit easier. The other time is spent on the really kind of unsexy stuff, the kind of strategy behind all this. So working with sponsors, trying to find sponsors, well, not find them, but certainly trying to negotiate with sponsors, and planning my content, and all that kind of stuff. And because I'm doing quite a bit of travel as well, there's a lot of things that come into that in terms of planning for the traveling, etc. Yeah, there's a lot of what sound like fairly dull things, but they need to be done as well, that I spend my time on. But content creation is it's most of my day, really. And that's what I want to do. That's what always what I've wanted to do. So I can't complain about that. Right. Have I missed any questions that are on? Keep the questions coming, guys. We've got a bit more time. I haven't got to go anywhere just yet. So another one from Mike. Sorry, let's start again. Are you working to a long-term plan as a content creator? If so, what is the long-term goal? Long-term plan. So I've made one big thing I've done recently, in fact, within the last couple of days, is change my business name. So you probably wouldn't have been aware of this because I've never really talked about it publicly. But my the company that sits above all of this stuff, that has been around, I've had the company since 2015, so quite a while now, was called Business Fiction Limited, and that was just my limited company. I used it before I did all this, when I was a freelancer and an external marketer. So it's been around quite a long time, but I absolutely hated the name Business Fiction. I vaguely remember coming up with it, and I think I did that classic thing where I listed loads of potential names for the business, and for some reason picked that one. I don't know why. I think I got to the stage where I was just bored of thinking about it, registered it with Companies House, and then just got on with life, and regretted it ever since, just because I can't stand it. So what I've done, this is official now, so I can talk about it, is I've changed Business Fiction Limited to Mark Ellis Media Limited. So that is the name of the business that sits above all this stuff. It's, if I invoice someone, that's the company on it. If you sign up to Substack and you go for the paid subscription, you'll see Mark Ellis Media as the entity that takes your money. So that's a huge change, really. It's a small change. It's just changing the name, obviously. Although there's loads of things you have to do, as you can guess, to all the admin stuff behind that. But it's a massive change in terms of the direction of the business. It adds it gives some real substance to what I'm doing, I think, really. And it also probably gives you a bit of an insight into what I'm thinking about the future in terms of where it's going to go. I don't want to be solely reliant on me standing here talking to a camera or typing on a keyboard. That has always been the issue with these kind of businesses, where if, God forbid, I get hit by a bus or get ill, whatever happens, it stops. Everything ceases. Whereas if I work towards creating a company where I have things happening that don't rely on me, I don't want to divulge all these ideas yet, but you can imagine, the ability to have a studio space which it's not just occupied by me, it's occupied by other people, either within my business or renting it. and that kind of stuff, basically. So the long-term goal is to not be as reliant on me as I am now, because I think it's not great. It's fine at the moment, and this isn't going to happen next week, but that's kind of the trajectory for Mark Ellis Media as it is now, which is really exciting. It feels quite grand. It finally feels like I've got a business above this that links to the stuff I'm doing, rather than just a legacy business that I was using for everything else. Yeah, it's exciting. It's really exciting. So that's not giving away too much yet, Mike, but as always, the whole point of Solo Club is that I give you guys an insight into what I'm doing. So as these things change and develop, then I will keep you updated. Absolutely. Rob, can I be your GM, general manager? Every successful YouTuber needs an Asian right-hand man. I could be the Willie Do to your Lou later, the Kenneth, is it Bolido? To your, yeah, I get the point. Or your Yvonne Ho to your Linus. Maybe not that one, Rob. Yeah, I've had funnily enough, I've put this application out for the general manager role, which will start off as a part-time thing. By the way, if you're interested, email me, mark@markellisreviews.com. It's a part-time thing to begin with. I've had loads of applications, of an overwhelming number already, and some very good ones as well. So yeah, I'll report back on how that goes. But what's this? I'd include Angus Parker in this list, but he doesn't fit my narrative. Won't go into that. Right, Travis. Did you see the story from your fellow tech YouTuber Deo? I won't try and pronounce that. And his Pixel Fold box arrived sealed from Amazon with no phone inside. That sounds very familiar. No, I didn't see that, to be honest, Travis. But I don't know if you know, but I've had very big issues with Amazon not delivering what they should be delivering. I had it twice. I bought a camera, which was this camera actually I'm talking to. Well, not this one, but it was supposed to be this camera. And it turned up from Amazon, and there was I think a work light inside that you'd use to, while you're painting the walls, which was worth about 20 quid. I then stupidly ordered an iPad Pro, and the box came, and inside was a Yeti microphone, which was worth about 30 quid. And they were one after the other too. And I had to really fight to get, I've got the money back, but I had to really fight to get the money back, which was unbelievable. But no, it sounds like he's had a similar thing. But I don't buy anything from Amazon now unless it's cheap. Simple as that. Yeah, you say it's Amazon are not making it right. Yeah, it took. I mean, he won't be watching this, but if you're in touch with him in comments and things, then just tell him to keep going. All I did was I kept emailing Amazon again and again. I wasted so much time on this. I was made to feel like a criminal, basically. But I kept emailing and tweeting about it, and eventually, the very helpful department got in touch and sorted it out. But it was an absolute nightmare. Since hitting 100,000 subscribers, are you now seeing a difference in the amount of kit you're having to buy to review versus what you're being sent? I don't know if it's linked to the 100K. I mean, this has been a gradual thing over the last year or 18 months or so, really, where I'm getting enough stuff these days to not have to worry too much about buying things. There are exceptions to this, where, and it's normally the big ones normally. So Google, for instance, are great. They send me their stuff. I get the new Pixel phones. You never know if you're going to remain within that list. But thus far, touch wood, I seem to be on good terms with them, and they keep sending me things. So that's great. And you normally get them ahead of time. Fantastic. And I have several other brands that do that, which is brilliant. But then you get things like brands like Samsung, where it's been very difficult to get the Fold and Flip review phones out of them. And this isn't it's not a slight on Samsung at all. I kind of snuck in at the end in terms of getting to the event for the Fold and Flip launch event. So I wasn't expecting to be at the top of the list to get the review units. So I've been at the back of the queue, basically. So I had to buy the Flip 5, for instance. The Fold 5 has just turned up at my house earlier today as a review unit. So that's good news. But I've not had the Tab, for instance, the Tab S9. I've got to wait for that a bit longer for that. And I'm not willing to buy some of these things because I don't think I need to. I think I can wait. But yeah, there's definitely a reduction in how much stuff I'm having to buy. I mean, headphones, for instance, I haven't really had to buy a pair of headphones for a long time. I'm trying to think of the last time I bought a pair. It was a little while ago. You know, the new Beats Studio Pro, they were sent to me before release. I'm speaking to Bose now, which is great. There's certain headphone manufacturers that are still on my target list. But I have to illustrate this because whenever you talk to your mates about this, all they say is, "Oh, it must be great to get free stuff." Well, and it is, but most of this stuff gets reviewed, and sometimes it has to go back. Other time, I don't need 30 pairs of headphones, which is literally what I've got over there, and it can be a bit of a burden to have all that stuff sometimes. What's really important though is getting your hands on this stuff before release, because it gives you time to try them out, and more importantly, you can get those reviews out on time and at the point where the interest is sky high, which makes a big difference to views and engagement and stuff. The one thing I do still have to buy pretty much at the moment is Macs and iPhones. I'm not on the embargo list with Apple, so although I kind of am with Beats, which is owned by Apple, but it's complicated. So yeah, that's a big overhead, but that's something I've always budgeted for. And as I always say, if you go into tech reviewing, you have to go in with some money behind you, because it can get expensive if you want to review the things that bring in the views, basically. I hope that answered your question. Travis, so the phone box is going back to the guy that had the wrong delivery from Amazon. The actual phone box was inside. That was sealed and empty. Just had the wrap from the phone. Wow, that's totally different to what I had. I didn't have the thing at all. It was just a replace a much cheaper item in its box. That's really strange, but not good. Not good at all. On repurposing content, to what extent do you use your blog post for creating YouTube videos? How does that work in practice? Many thanks. You're helping me here with the pronunciation. And Andrea. I'm terrible with pronunciations for names. Sorry, I'm typically British with that. I'm not very good at it. So hope Andrea. I'll stop embarrassing myself. Repurposing content. Yeah. So, it's quite straightforward, actually. It's a case of, I think what's changed since the channel's got bigger and I'm working with more brands and sponsors is that these days the videos tend to drive the blog posts, whereas before I'd come up with the blog post ideas first and then turn them into videos. Now, because the videos are so, the video schedule is so structured because it's based around release schedules and sponsor requirements and getting review units in time, as I just mentioned, from brands. They get put into the content diary for the videos first, and then I work the blogs in so I can start writing the content. And how it works in practice is literally a case of showing you the thing that I kind of demonstrated earlier. It gets written, it gets published, and then I take that blog post and just chuck it into Notion, into a video template. I will show you this one day, obviously, and it will be available to use for yourselves. But basically, put it into a Notion template for the video, and just bullet point out all of the chapters. Takes me about 5 minutes just to go through and bullet point it all out. So all I do when I start the A-roll filming is talk to the camera, look at the bullet points, get in my head roughly what I'm talking about, turn to camera and waffle on. That's it, and it works really well for me. And it means I've got content for I've got written content and I've got video content as well. It works really well. I recommend, even if you're not a very good writer or you don't think you're a very good writer, it doesn't matter. I would always do this approach, because you're creating two forms of content, and then a third form, which is taking the long form YouTube video and chopping it up into 4 or 5, 6, 7, whatever shorts. It saves so much time and creates this wealth of connected content. It's brilliant. Hey Mark, do you go to the gym when you have time? Yeah, I go to the gym all the time. All the time, not all the time. I probably do the gym 4 or 5 times a week. And I've got a very nice gym just down the road. It's where I did my Flip 5 video from a little while ago when I was walking around the golf course. I'm not a member of the golf course. I'm not that posh or rich. But not you have to be posh to play golf. That's terrible. You know what I mean? But it's a very nice gym, which I had to really think long and hard about paying for, because it's not cheap. My girlfriend actually said in the end, she said to me, will it make you happy when you're there? Will you enjoy using the gym? And will you use it for work as well? The answer to both those questions was yes and yes. And she said, well, just do it. I did it, and it's one of the best things I've invested in, by a long shot in terms of just having a lovely place to work out. It's a stunning gym with amazing views of the, golf course, but it's got a lovely, working type environment as well. So there's a couple of different places where you can take your laptop and get a nice coffee, discounted coffee as well, really nice coffee, which is really important, as you can tell. And you can take your laptop and do work. So I think I've mentioned before on these live streams that I can't just stay in this studio all day and work. I do it sometimes, but I get cabin fever quite quickly. So the way that I structure most of my days, like today's was a good example. I came into the studio. I started work early in on the breakfast table at home, 6 a.m. to about 8ish. Did loads of writing. Had breakfast then with the family, and then came here and did the A-roll shoot for a video, loaded it into the MacBook, took the MacBook to the gym, did the edit, the A-roll, the first pass of the A-roll edit at the gym, did a workout, got showered, obviously, didn't need to know that, and then came back here and then cracked on with the rest of the day, which is where I am now. And that's quite a common thing that I do. So start early at home, go to the gym, do some work at the gym, do a workout at the gym, come to the studio. Although occasionally the studio is slotted in there as well. So in the morning. So I'm kind of rambling on there, but yeah, I go to the gym a lot. That's a long way of answering that question, but I love it. Mentally, I like to be fit anyway. I think it's important. It's obviously important. We've got a history of heart disease in our family, and that's always on my mind. I want to make sure I live as long as possible. So although my diet could sometimes be better, it's not too bad. My fitness, I've never been fitter in my life, and I love it. I love that part of it. But also, so apart from being physically fit, or as fit as I can be, mentally fit. It's anyone here who runs regularly or does lots of walking or goes to the gym, cycling, whatever it is that you do, you'll probably know what I'm about to say, which is that if you don't do that thing, and you should have rest days, obviously, very important. But if I have a rest day, although I need it, I always feel a bit worse for some reason mentally. There's always something in my head that's not quite right. When I go to the gym, that clears, and it's just amazing. Sleep is the other thing which I'm working on at the moment, but that's for another discussion. Honestly, I find it boring whenever a new product comes out. My feed is flooded with lots and lots of reviews of the same product just because of an embargo date. Michael, love your username, by the way. You're a regular. I've always recognised that one. You've really good point, Michael. And this is the really tricky thing with tech YouTube. As I mentioned a moment ago, to get the views, you do need to be on time with it generally. But that's the same for everyone, which is why you get this flood of videos. I think what happens after that can be quite interesting. So you'll get the inevitable kind of 2 week later things and 1 month later. And sometimes those videos can perform really well, but they're a bit of a gamble. So I think as a viewer, I'm like this. I don't sit there and watch all of the reviews when they come out, partly because I don't want to be kind of influenced by them. So I'm thinking as from myself as a reviewer, I tend to leave it a bit to watch reviews. But I would just wait and wait for those. Watch the people that you really respect and trust, but then maybe wait a bit for the follow-up reviews. If you're not in a rush for stuff, which most people aren't, you know, when the iPhone 15 comes out, some people will upgrade straight away because they've waited for 2 years, 3 years, whatever. The ones who are on the fence a little bit, and it's, you know, these things are getting more expensive, they'll wait. So there's no rush to make that decision. But I know exactly what you're saying, Michael, but it is a problem. It's a fine balance. You know, do you put stuff out straight away? Do you wait and risk losing the views? It's tricky, but I know how you feel. Jaspal says Ali is 5 inches, 5 inches, 5 inches tall, 5 feet 11 inches. Quite a tall guy then, taller than me. I'm 5'9" ish, somewhere between 5'8" and 5'9". Have I missed any questions? There've been some really good. There's always good questions, but I've enjoyed these ones today, guys. Thank you. Any other last questions before I head off? Or are we pretty much there? I hope it's been interesting today, as always. I hope the writing thing it's very much top of mind for me at the moment because of all the Medium stuff that's going on. And also with Medium, just very quickly, although I'm very annoyed about it, as you can tell, um, I don't want that to influence everyone's, approach to Medium, or if you're thinking of joining Medium as a writer and I'm putting you off, don't let me put you off. Give it a go. I think the reason it's annoyed me so much is because I've added so much to Medium. I think I created an entire academy for it. I wrote an ebook for it. I was trying to get people to write for that place, and I brought in so much traffic from Google to Medium for the stuff that I wrote, and I still think I was delivering valuable content to my audience, and that valuable content is evaporating in terms of reach. So I feel betrayed a little bit by that. And I feel like we've been given the cold shoulder in tech. I don't know if they did that. I don't think they did it deliberately. I think it's just an unfortunate consequence of the changes they've made. But equally, for every writer who's experienced big cuts in revenue and views on Medium, there's a writer who's done better, and I'm genuinely happy for those people. And if there's anyone watching this either now or in the future who's doing better from Medium based on these changes, I'm really happy for you. Please, celebrate, make the most of it. And equally, if you're thinking about doing it, go for it. Again, the reason I'm so annoyed is because it's a big part of my business, or was, and I've got to now work out how to plug that gap and really think about how much time I put into Medium. And I shouldn't have to be doing this at all. It's daft. They should invest in a proper algorithm, and they're not doing that for whatever reason. But just my opinion. We do have another question here, I think. Do you use AI in your blog writing? No, I don't. No, the only time I ever use AI for blog writing, occasionally, is writing the title. So if I'm stuck with the title, if I'm thinking that isn't quite right or it's not engaging enough, and writing titles is an art form. It really is. I've only ever kind of learnt it by doing it and watching other people. So if I get stuck with the title, I do use ChatGPT just to give me some 10 or so potential titles, which I'll take and perhaps either use as they are or tweak them slightly. But the actual all the actual the main content, I've never used AI for that. I don't recommend it. Even if you don't think you're a very good writer, it doesn't matter. If you've got something to say, write it down. I wouldn't use AI for that, because you're then starting to create content just for the sake of creating content. And that, if you're doing that, you probably shouldn't be writing. That's all I'd say on that one, really. But use it for titles, because that is, you do need a bit of a leg up with that sometimes. Guys, someone has just mentioned the Beats Studio, new Beats Studio Pro, which are indeed fantastic headphones. That's completely off topic, but it's definitely worth mentioning, because they are, at the moment, they are the highlight for me this year, the surprising highlight in terms of the stuff that I've reviewed. Anyway, off topic, but anyway, I genuinely hope that's been interesting in terms of the writing stuff. And thank you so much for your questions, guys. As always, if you haven't checked out the Substack newsletter, it's just below in the description. And have a fantastic week. I think I'm returning. Let me double check this, because I know we've changed these times around a little bit. I do have quite a bit of travel coming up over the next few weeks here and there, which is making fitting these Q&As in tricky, but they are going to happen every week. So for instance, next week, because of travel, personal travel, actually, we're going away for next weekend, which is quite nice. This next Q&A will be on Wednesday next week at 4:00 UK time. I'm going to experiment a little bit at some stage with the actual timings, as in the time of the day that they go out, because I know it's not ideal for US people. Apologies for that. But yeah, next Wednesday will be the next one. So come on with questions. I'll have a think about the main topic. And in the meantime, guys, have a fantastic weekend. And thank you so much for getting involved. I'll catch you next week. Cheers.